The great viewing chamber of the Galactic Council was quiet. A soft blue light glowed from the central holographic display. It showed a star map of the Orion Arm. Tiny silver dots, representing ships, were moving away from a point labeled Sol. They were slow, like dust floating on water. Counselor Turek watched from his high seat. He was a Velm. His skin was gray and smooth, like stone. He felt a familiar tiredness. The human matter was finally, after so many debates, coming to an end. Final confirmation, a voice said. It was Leora, the representative from the botanical worlds. Her form was delicate, like a woven plant. The last human vessels have cleared the agreed boundary. The final fleet is on its vector. No deviations. A low hum of approval moved through the chamber. Grafin, whose body was made of a crystalline rock, shifted. The sound was like grinding pebbles. Good. Their energy was disruptive, like a noisy frequency. Tarek nodded slowly. He looked at the two smaller images at the bottom of the display. They were the human liaisons. The man was named Jin. He had black hair and calm eyes. The woman was Suman. She offered a small, polite smile. They were the last humans anyone in the chamber would ever see. Open the channel for final protocol, Tarek said. A communication line opened. Jin's face became larger. The background was the bridge of the human flagship, the long goodbye. It was clean and efficient. Counselor Tarek, Jin said. His voice was clear and without emotion. On behalf of humanity, we confirm our departure. All systems are nominal. We are proceeding on the agreed path. Tarek arranged his words with care. The Galactic Council acknowledges your compliance. Your cooperation in this orderly transition is noted. You have the coordinates for the unclaimed region. May you find stability there. It was a formal thing to say. Stability was what the Council valued most. Humans, in their view, had very little of it. Suman spoke then. Her voice was softer. Thank you, Counselor. We have transferred all remaining administrative data to the Central Archive. Access keys are with your clerk. She paused for a second. We wish you all peace and prosperity. The words were correct. They were the right words for a farewell. But to Tarek, they sounded flat, empty, like a thing you read from a screen, not something you feel. The same wishes are extended to humanity, Tarek replied. He felt he should say more, but no other words came. The session was over. The business was done. Closing channel, Jin said. The screen went dark. The images of the two humans vanished. The main display now showed only the star map. The silver dots were getting smaller, moving into the dark space between the spiral arms. The Council watched in silence as the ships activated their main engines. Bright lines flashed on the display. Then the dots became faint. Then they were just specks. Then they were gone. The hologram switched off. The chamber was lit only by the soft ambient light. The quiet felt heavier than before. It was not a peaceful quiet. It was the quiet of an empty room where a loud machine has just been turned off. Your ears still ring from the noise, and the new silence feels wrong. Grafin broke the silence. Finally, no more emotional petitions. No more ethical reviews of mining operations. No more chaotic art festivals that blocked the space lanes. Leora rustled slightly. Their botanical samples were aggressive. Their plants grew too fast. They changed the soil. It was hard to manage. Other council members added their thoughts. The historian spoke of human wars. The economists spoke of their unpredictable markets. The cultural minister spoke of their loud music and confusing stories. Everyone agreed. The galaxy would be more orderly without them. Tarek listened. He had agreed with all of this for years. Humans were brilliant, yes. Their technology was clever. Their doctors were gifted. But they were also painful. They asked difficult questions at meetings. They felt sadness for strangers. They got angry about unfairness in places that did not concern them. They were like a fire, useful but dangerous and hard to control. Letting them go was the logical choice. Move to the next agenda item, Tarek said. Adjustment of trade route Gamma 7. Now that the Sol system and its lanes are fully vacated, we can optimize for efficiency. The meeting continued. Data streams flowed. Reports were given. But Tarek found his mind wandering. He kept seeing the calm face of Jin. He kept hearing the final words of Suman. Peace and prosperity. He looked at his fellow council members. They were all so different. Grafin was hard and logical. Liara was focused only on growth cycles. The others were the same, each in their own way. For the first time, Tarek wondered what a human in the room would say about the trade route proposal. A human would probably ask about the impact on the small, non-spacefaring cultures living on the asteroids along the route. A human would care about that dot. He shook his head slightly. That was the problem. That was exactly the kind of disruptive thought that slowed things down. He forced himself to focus on the numbers. The meeting lasted for hours. When it ended, Tarek returned to his quarters. His window looked out over the magnificent council spire, stretching into the pink sky of the capital world. Everything was in its place. Everything was orderly. He accessed the archive. He entered the code to see the final human transfer. It was a vast library of data. Engineering schematics, cultural records, medical databases. It was all neatly filed. A complete copy of human knowledge, left behind as a gift, or perhaps as a proof that they had been here. Tarek scanned the list. He did not open any files. He just looked at the names. He saw a subfolder labeled Maintenance Schedules, Critical Systems. He opened it. There were thousands of entries. Next to many of them was a small symbol indicating a personal custodian. Names like Minsu, Jiang, Taiyang, Hannah. These were the people who fixed the gravity stabilizers, who tuned the biodome filters, who updated the conflict resolution programs. They were gone now. A small alert appeared on his screen. It was a routine message from the Beleria's starport. Scheduled maintenance cycle completed for gravity wave stabilizer node 4. Custodian, Min Su. Status, all optimal. The message was automatic. It was sent because the schedule said it should be sent. But Min Su was not there. He was on a ship, moving into the dark. Who would get the next alert? Who would even understand it? Tarek dismissed the thought. It was not his concern. The local engineers would handle it. The galaxy was vast and smart. It did not need a few specific humans. He turned off his screen. The room was dark and quiet. The deep, ringing silence of the chamber was here too. He realized he missed the background hum of the human diplomatic channels. They were always active, always chattering, asking questions, sharing odd stories, offering help. That channel was silent now. Forever. For the first time, a cold trickle of doubt entered Tarek's mind. It was a small, quiet feeling. It whispered that they had not removed a noisy machine. They had turned off the heart of a complex system, and they did not yet know what the heart was truly connected to. He lay down to rest. Outside, the orderly lights of the galactic capital blinked steadily against the night, peaceful, prosperous, and silent. The days on the council world turned in their orderly way. The sky changed from pink to deep purple, and the twin moons rose. The business of running a galaxy continued. The absence of the humans was a footnote in the reports, a small item of administrative cleanup. The feeling in the council chamber was lighter, many thought. More efficient. The first sign was small. A minor alert from the Belarus starport. It was a busy place, where ships from a dozen species came to trade. The alert was about the gravity wave stabilizer in Docking Bay 3. It was a system that kept the artificial gravity smooth, so that heavy cargo and delicate beings would not be thrown around. The alert said there was a harmonic imbalance. It was not an emergency, but the system's own repair guide was confusing. The local engineers, a team of capable Veln like Tarek, opened the guide. The instructions were written by the humans who built it. The instructions were logical, but they were not simple. They talked about listening to the hum and feeling for the wobble. One step said, if the tertiary coil sings a B-flat, check the phase modulator's emotional dampener. The Veln engineers looked at each other. What did sings mean? What was an emotional dampener in a machine? They tried to follow the technical diagrams, but the system was clever. It was designed to be fixed by someone who understood its personality. The chief engineer sent a message to the maintenance custodian listed in the log. The name was Minsu. A request for clarification was automatically generated and sent to Minsu's old address. It bounced back. Recipient not found. The engineers managed a rough fix. They forced the stabilizer back online. But the gravity in Bay 3 was not perfectly smooth after that. It had a slight, constant shudder. It was not dangerous, just uncomfortable. Like a ship with a wheel that is a little loose. Everyone noticed it, but no one could quite fix it. The report that reached the council was brief. Minor instability in Belarus Bay 3, contained, cause unclear. Councillor Tarek read it and forgot about it. There were bigger things to manage. Then, a message came from the Talon biodomes. Leora, the botanical representative, received it directly. The Talon domes were beautiful, great bubbles of glass where rare plants from Leora's homeworld grew. The air inside was perfect, maintained by a complex atmospheric scrubber. It was a human design, famous for its elegance and efficiency. The message was from the head gardener, a worried Talon. The filter metrics are declining. The catalyst layer is degrading faster than projected. We cannot replicate the replacement. The synthesis instructions are incomplete. Leora went to the archives. She found the file for the scrubber. The schematics were there. The list of materials was there. But the final step, the activation of the organic catalyst, was a single sentence. Prepare the catalyst with a gentle intention and a steady hand, as Jiang showed you. Leora stared at the words. A gentle intention? What did that mean? What temperature was gentle? What chemical concentration was a steady hand? She called the Talon dome. Where is the human specialist? Jiang? Leora asked. The Talon gardener looked sad. She left. She was the keeper of the catalyst. She made it fresh every cycle in a small glass jar. She said it needed to be cared for. We have the jar. We have the raw materials. But the mixture we make does not work. The plants are becoming slow. The leaves are losing their shine. Leora felt a first pinch of worry. This was her field. Plants were logical. They grew or they did not. But this human machine acted like a living thing that needed a friend. She authorized extra resources. She sent a team of the best botanical chemists. They studied the old catalyst samples. They found traces of a unique compound, but they could not figure out how it was formed. The process was not just chemical. It seemed to be biological, tied to a specific bacterial culture that Jiang had nurtured. And she had taken that knowledge with her. The report went to the full council. Talon primary biodome experiencing atmospheric decay. Human proprietary process lost. Seeking alternative solutions. Estimated cost high. Graffin read it and made a grinding sound. See? This is what happens. They made everything a secret. They did not share properly. Tarek looked at the report. He remembered the name Jiang from the archive list. A personal custodian. He did not say anything. The next problem was quieter, but wider. It was about the children. Many species on the council worlds had young. The humans had run something called cross-species youth hubs. They were simple places. Young ones from different species could go there. They would play simple games, make messy art, and listen to stories. The stories were often human stories, translated. Stories about sharing, about kindness, about feeling lonely and finding a friend. The hubs were not official council programs. They were volunteer projects, run by humans like a woman named Hannah and others. The council had tolerated them. They seemed harmless. Now, the hubs were closed. The doors were shut. At first, no one thought much of it. But then the teachers and the parents started to notice things. The young Grathans were getting into more fights. The young Velen were more withdrawn. A teacher from a primary learning center sent an observation to the cultural office. The social integration exercises are less effective. There is a noted increase in interspecies friction among juveniles. The previous mediating activities are missed. What the teacher did not say, but felt, was that the human hubs were the only place where the young were taught how to feel about each other, not just how to behave around each other. The difference was subtle, but real. Finally, the data streams themselves began to feel different. The great archives were still there, full of information. But the new contributions feed, a stream of art, music, informal theories, and creative code that species uploaded, was changing. The human contributions were gone. Their contributions were always the most viewed, the most debated. They were often strange. Painting of a lonely star. A song based on the sound of an insect. A crazy idea for a new type of engine that broke a few laws of physics. Other species would see these things and get inspired. They would make their own art, write their own songs, try their own experiments. The human chaos was a spark. Now the feed was full of competent, polished, and very similar work. It was all correct. None of it was surprising. The spark was gone. Counselor Tarek sat in his quiet office. He looked at the reports on his screen. The gravity wobble. The dying plants. The fighting children. The stale archives. They were not connected in any official report. Each was a separate issue for a separate department. But Tarek's mind, trained to see patterns, started to connect the dots. Each problem was a place where a human had been. Min-Su, Jiang, Hana. They were not just workers. They were caretakers. They understood their systems in a way the manuals did not explain. They cared for the machines, the plants, the young, the ideas. Their care was not in the official instructions. It was in the gentle intention, the listening ear, the shared story. He pulled up the galactic infrastructure map. He typed in a search. Systems with designated human custodians. The list that appeared was very, very long. It was not just big things like starports in biodomes. It was water recyclers on desert worlds, communication relays in lonely space, the public gardens on 100 different planets, the translation software for 1,000 minor languages. A cold feeling, deeper than the doubt before, settled in Tarek. It was the feeling of standing on a bridge you just realized was held up by a single, unseen stone. And that stone had just been removed. He called a meeting of the new subcommittee, Post-Human Continuity. The room was not full. It was a low-priority group. We need to assess our dependency, Tarek began, his voice even, on human-maintained systems. We must find replacements for their unique knowledge. Grathan was there. We do not depend on them. We have their manuals. Our engineers are superior. These are just small failures. We will fix them. But Leora was quieter now. The plants are not small. The catalyst is gone. My chemists are puzzled. The knowledge was not in the manual. It was in the human. The meeting ended with a decision to study the problem more. It was a council solution. Form a committee, gather data, move slowly. That night, Tarek could not rest. He walked to the great window. He looked at the steady, orderly lights. He imagined Minsu listening to a machine hum. He imagined Jiang carefully tending a culture in a jar. He imagined Hana telling a story to a group of very different young ones. They were all out in the dark now, on their ships that the silence of the city outside felt different. It was no longer the quiet of order. It was the quiet of something missing. The first crack had appeared in the smooth wall of the galaxy, and Tarek did not know how deep it went, or what was on the other side. The silence in the galaxy grew deeper. It was not a quiet of peace, but a quiet of a machine slowly winding down. The small problems, like the wobbly gravity and the sad plants, were now joined by bigger ones. The cracks were spreading that the great data vault was the pride of the council. It held all the knowledge of all the species. It was more than a library. It was an intelligent system. It could predict trends, suggest new research, and even create art. It was the galaxy's brain, for cycles. Its most interesting outputs had come from what was called the inspiration engine. This was a part of the vault that took in raw, chaotic data mostly from public feeds and mixed it together to find new patterns. It had produced beautiful music, surprising scientific theories, and clever solutions to old problems. The head archivist, a precise being named Kale, noticed the change first. The vault's creative suggestions became bland. They were logical, correct, but they led nowhere new. It was like cooking with only salt, forgetting all the other spices. Kale ran diagnostics. Everything was functioning. The data was still flowing in dot. Then he saw it. The single largest source of raw data for the inspiration engine had been the human public networks. Their chaotic art forums, their silly joke databases, their passionate debates about meaningless things, their recordings of rain and wind. For the vault, this human noise was a storm of strange connections. It used that storm to make lightning flashes of genius. That storm was silent now. The feed was dead. The inspiration engine was running on the orderly, polite, and predictable data from the remaining species. It was getting the same answers every time. The galaxy's brain was becoming dull. Kale sent his report to the council. Cultural and scientific innovation metrics show a significant decline. Source: cessation of human-sourced chaotic data inputs. Prognosis: continued stagnation in non-applied creative fields. Tarek read the words continued stagnation. They felt heavy. A galaxy that does not create new things is a galaxy that is dying, but a worse problem was waking up. In the heart of the council spire was the Conflict Resolution Array. It was a powerful artificial intelligence. Its job was to monitor communications between species trade deals, border discussions, cultural exchanges, and predict where arguments might turn into fights. It would then send calm suggestions, reminders of old treaties, or proposals for compromise. It had kept the peace for generations. The array was failing. That it started with the Grath and the Kano. They were neighbor species. The Grath were miners, like Graphin. The Kano were gas gatherers, living in the atmospheres of giant planets. They had a small dispute over mining rights in a nebula that lay between their spaces. It was a normal dispute. For 100 years, the array would have sent a gentle message to both sides, perhaps suggesting a shared survey, reminding them of their mutual trade benefits. This time, the array sent nothing. The Graph, being direct, sent a fleet to protect their claim. The Kino, being proud, saw this as an act of war. They mobilized their own swift ships. Insults were broadcast. A graph mining ship was bumped by a canal scout. No one was hurt, but honor was damaged. The council was forced to step in. Tarek, Grathan, and others spent days in tense negotiation. It was exhausting. They finally reached a shaky agreement. Both sides were unhappy. The trust was broken. After the crisis, Tarek went to the technicians in charge of the array. Why did it not act? What is wrong? The lead technician was nervous. We do not know, Counselor. All systems are green, but its predictive empathy matrix. It is offline. Empathy matrix? Tarek asked. He had never heard of it. The technician called up the technical schematics. Deep in the code of the array was a subsystem with a human name. The Taiyang Kim Emotive Bridge. It was a piece of software that tried to model how different species felt, not just what they said. It read tone, context, and history. It could tell the difference between a real threat and a show of pride. It was the part of the array that understood emotion. And where is the maintainer of this bridge? Tarek asked, though he already knew the answer. The technician looked at his log. The listed custodian is a human socio-digital psychologist. Name, Taiyang. Last login, the day of the departure. Can you fix it? Can you make it work without him? We are trying, Counselor. But the code is unusual. It is not like normal code. It has notes to itself. It has moods. It says things like, when the Grath voice rises by 2 decibels, check for fear, not anger. We do not know how to make it listen. Without it, the array only sees words and actions. It does not understand the hearts behind them. It is blind to feeling. Tarek left the room feeling cold. The peace of the galaxy had not been kept by laws or by the council. It had been kept by a quiet, unseen piece of human software, maintained by a man named Taiyang who understood feelings. And now it was asleep that the problems were no longer separate. They were connected threads, and they were all being pulled at once. On a peaceful agricultural world, the water purification system failed. It was a human design that used a special kind of algae. The algae had died. The manual said to renew the culture with a starter from the main tank. But the main tank was dead. The human woman who sang to the algae to keep it healthy was gone. On a busy space station, the universal translation earpieces started to glitch. They would translate words, but they would miss the meaning of idioms and jokes. Conversations became confusing and frustrating. The human linguists who constantly updated the joke databases and the cultural context files were not there to do it. Everywhere, the things that made life smooth, understandable, and peaceful were breaking down. Not with explosions, but with sighs. Not with crashes, but with confusion. The council meeting to address the systemic anomalies was full now. Everyone was there. The mood was tense. Grathan slammed a crystalline fist on the table. This is incompetence. We must replace all human systems with our own superior designs. Liara's plant fibers trembled. With what? We cannot even make the air from my domes. Their designs are not just machines. They are living agreements with the world. A new counselor from the Kano spoke with a sharp voice. Your peacekeeping machine failed. We almost went to war. My people are angry. Who will answer for this? All eyes turned to Tarek. He was the senior counselor. He had championed the motion for the humans to leave. He had called their compassion a weakness. Tarek looked at the faces around the table. He saw fear, anger, and blame. He did not see any solutions. He saw a group of brilliant beings who knew everything about their own fields, but nothing about how the pieces of the galaxy fit together. The humans had been the glue. They had been the ones who cared about the connections. He thought of Tai Yang, who wrote code that understood fear. He thought of the unnamed woman who sang to algae. He thought of the linguists who cared about jokes. "We have made an error," Tarek said, his voice old and tired. "We thought their systems were just tools. We were wrong. Their systems were relationships. And the other half of every relationship has left." The room was silent. No one argued. The truth was too heavy to push away. That night, Tarek did not look at the city lights. He sat in the dark and opened the old farewell recording. He watched Jin and Suman on the screen of the long goodbye. He listened to their final words again. "We wish you all peace and prosperity." Before, he heard empty politeness. Now he heard something else. He heard a goodbye filled with pity. They knew what they took with them. They knew what they left behind. And they had been polite enough not to say it. The unraveling was not coming from outside. It was coming from within. The galaxy was not being attacked. It was simply forgetting how to be alive. And the teachers who knew how are now far away, traveling into a darkness the Council had chosen for them. A full cycle of seasons passed on the Council world. The problems did not get better. They became the new normal. A constant, low hum of failure. The Council was no longer a government of grand plans. It was a committee of repair, and it was failing at that .tarek called for a full audit. Every system, every service, every cultural exchange that had any human touch was to be examined. The report that came back was not a list of issues. It was a confession. It showed that the humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were its foundation. The report had chapters. Chapter, social lubricant. The humans ran the informal things. The neighborhood watch for 1,000 planets. This was not a police force. It was a network of volunteers, like a man named Day. He would walk the energy grid, lines on the colony moon of Telos. He listened to the hum, watched for wildlife that might nest in the wrong place, and filed small, gentle reports. Since he left, 3 minor power outages had happened on Telos because animals chewed through cables. No one was checking. The official maintenance drones only fixed big problems. They did not watch. They watched .chapter. Crisis prevention. The humans had a talent for being in the right place. The report told of a human doctor, Yuna, who worked on the harsh desert world of Carthax. The native species there, the Carth, were proud and silent about pain. A strange illness moved through them. They would not admit they were sick until they fell down. Yuna learned to read the slight change in the color of their scales. She would bring medicine before they asked. She saved hundreds. She asked for no thanks. She left with her people. Now the illness was back. The Carth were dying again, too proud to call for help until it was too late. No other species knew how to see the signs. Chapter, the unwritten knowledge. This was the largest chapter. It listed the things that were never in any manual. How to calm the thinking engines of a telepathic mirror when they got caught in a sad thought loop. A human child would sing a simple, repetitive song to them. How to mix the alloy for the hyperspace beacon rings so it sang in harmony with space itself. An old human engineer, Joe, would tap each ring with a hammer and listen. He called it tuning. How to settle arguments in the mixed species markets. A human merchant, Myray, would make a joke and offer a cup of bitter tea called coffee. All of it was gone. Tarek sat in the council chamber. The report was glowing in the air before every member. No one spoke. The evidence was complete. Leora broke the silence. Her voice was a whisper of leaves. My Talon biodomes. They are dead. The plants are gray. We used every science. But the catalyst, it needed Jiong's care. It was a living thing, and she was its friend. We did not know we were employing a friend. We thought we were employing a technician. Graffin's crystalline form had lost some of its shine. He spoke, not with anger, but with a deep, grinding sadness. The Graf and the Kano are at war. A real war. Ships are firing. Beings are dying. The array did not stop it. We tried to negotiate. But we do not know how to make them not want to fight. The human, Taiyang, his machine understood that. We only understand rules. Rules do not stop hatred. One by one, the others spoke. The keeper of the great archives said innovation had stopped. The head of health said new diseases were spreading because the human medical scouts were gone. The minister of culture said the galaxy felt empty, like a house where the lights are on, but no one is home. Tarek finally stood. He felt very old. The relief he had felt watching the human ships leave was now a poison in his heart. We made a mistake, he said. The words echoed. We called them chaotic. We called them emotional. We said they were not logical. We were fools. He pointed to the report. This is not a list of broken machines. This is a list of broken connections. The gravity stabilizer did not need a better engineer. It needed Minsu, who knew its song. The sick Karth did not need a better doctor. They needed Yuna, who knew their pride. The arguing traders did not need a better law. They needed Myray and her terrible joke and her bitter tea. He looked at the faces around him, all so different, all so brilliant in their own ways, and all so lost. We are a council of experts. We know everything about one thing each. But the humans, they were experts in us, in all of us. They learned our songs, our fears, our pride. They fixed things we did not know were broken. They held our galaxy together with kindness and curiosity. And we called it unprofessional. We voted for them to leave because their compassion was inconvenient for our schedules. The shame in the room was a physical thing. It was heavy and cold. Grafin said, "What do we do? We cannot bring them back. We exiled them. They followed our laws and left. We cannot just call them home. Would they even come?" Leora asked. We did not just ask them to leave. We made it clear they were not wanted. Their final words, peace and prosperity. I hear them differently now. I think they were saying goodbye to a patient who did not want to be healed. Tarek walked to the great window. The city below was still shining, but he did not see order anymore. He saw a fragile shell. Inside, the light was dying. We do not call them back, he said, his voice hollow. We have no right. We live with what we have chosen. We manage the collapse. The meeting ended. There were no more arguments. The truth was too big. In the days that followed, Tarek moved through his duties like a machine. He approved budgets for wars he could not stop. He signed death certificates for species plagues he could not cure. He read reports of cultural festivals that were empty and quiet. He spent his nights in the archive. He did not look for solutions. He looked for them. He watched old records. He saw a human named Chin teaching Veln children how to paint with light, laughing at the messy results. He saw a human named Sora carefully fixing the broken wing of a tiny flying creature from a world she had never heard of before. He saw Jin and Sumin years ago, calming a council debate by suggesting everyone take a break and look at a new type of starflower Leora had grown. They were connectors. They were healers. The galaxy was now a collection of beautiful, separate, dying pieces. The glue was gone. The council had not just let the glue leave. They had looked at the glue and called it dirt, and scraped it off. Tarek sat in the dark, the blue light of the records on his face. He finally understood the title of the human farewell message, the name of their last ship, the long goodbye. It was not just a journey. It was a statement. They had been saying goodbye for a long, long time, watching the council choose order over heart, until the only choice left was to leave. The lament was not a loud cry. It was the silent, daily realization of what they had lost. It was in the wobbly gravity. It was in the gray plants. It was in the sound of fighting in the stars. It was in the quiet archives. They had everything they thought they wanted. And now they regretted everything. The council chamber was a tomb of quiet despair. Tarek sat ahead of the long table, but he did not lead. No one did. They simply reported the slow unraveling. The war between the Grath and the Canel had settled into a bloody stalemate, draining resources from 100 worlds. The Talon domes were silent graves of gray moss. The great data vault's last original suggestion had been a more efficient way to arrange the chairs in the chamber. Grafton spoke, his voice like two rocks grinding together in pain. Another mining colony has gone silent. The life support was a human atmospheric processor. It did not fail. It just became less efficient. Day by day, the air grew thin. They fell asleep. No one asked why they didn't evacuate. Everyone knew. The transport schedules, once seamlessly adjusted by human logistics coordinators, were now a tangled mess. Help came too late. Leora was a wilted stem. She had no report. She just stared at the table. Tarek was about to dismiss them, to return to his private shame when the main doors hissed open. It was Kale, the young archivist. His usually calm face was tight with urgency. He was not a counselor. He was not supposed to be here. Counselors. "Forgive me," Kale said, his breath short. A proximity alert from the monitoring station at the old human departure boundary. A ship? Grafton rumbled, a flicker of old defiance in his voice. Had they returned to mock us? No, counselor. Not a ship. A probe. A small, simple drone. Human design. It is broadcasting on an old, clear frequency. No weapons, just a signal. A cold, impossible hope stabbed through Tarek's numbness. Put it on the main display. The star map vanished. In its place was a simple, clean communication interface. It showed a data packet labeled with human characters and galactic standard for the Galactic Council, knowledge retrieval. Source, the long goodbye. There was no video, no message from Jin or Sumin, just a list. A massive scrolling index of files. Tarek's eyes scanned the first entries. His heart hammered against his stone-like ribs. File. GW-stabilizer_maintenance_protocol_full.ksc. For Minzu's friends at Belarius. File. Talon_catalyst_culture_revival_guide.ksc. Per Biang's notes. File. Taiyang Kim _empathic_matrix_core_code_code_ and _therapy_manual.ksc.file. Cross-species_juvenile_integration_exercises.ksc from Hannah's collection. File. Carthax_scale color_diagnostic_chart.ksc. Yuna's method. File. Hyperpace_beacon_acoustic_tuning_procedure.ksc. As Zhong heard it closing parenthesis dot, the list went on and on. Thousands of entries. Every piece of unwritten knowledge, every secret, every gentle technique. The complete, detailed instructions for every system they had ever touched. It was all here. It is a trick, Grafton whispered. But there was no conviction in his voice. It is a gift, Leora breathed, her form trembling with a fragile hope. At the bottom of the index was one more file. A simple text document. Its title, A Final Note. Tarek opened it. The words appeared in clean, standard script. To the Galactic Council, we monitored the standard public channels. We saw the signs of strain. It was not our wish to cause harm through our absence. This probe contains every manual we never wrote. The password to decrypt the files is the answer to the first joke we ever shared in the council chamber. The one about the Veln, the graph, and the bottle of starlight. We left a record of it in the public archive under the catalog name Human Notions. We did this for two reasons. First, because the knowledge was never truly ours to keep. It belongs to the galaxy.second as a test. If you remember the joke, it means you remember a moment of shared laughter, a moment of connection. That is the key. If you do not remember, the files will remain locked. And you will know that the connection is truly broken. We are still out here. The channel on which this probe broadcasts will remain open. Call us when you are ready to talk. Not as a council to a species seeking a seat, but as one group of beings to another. As friends who have been apart, Jin and Sumin, on behalf of humanity. The chamber was utterly still. The weight of the offer was immense. It was not just data. It was a choice. A test of their own hearts. The joke, Tarek said, his mind racing back through years of stiff formal meetings. Human humor was illogical. It was about unexpected connections. He accessed the archive. He navigated to the Human Notions catalog. It was a small, neglected database of human cultural artifacts. He found the file. First official joke. Council Session 12.345. 2. He played it. A recording appeared. A younger Jin, standing at the lower podium, looking at a grumpy Grath ambassador and a very proper Veln senator. Jin had said, a Veln, a Graph, and a bottle of starlight walk into a docking bay. The Veln says, the starlight is improperly contained. The Grath says, the bottle is too fragile for useful work. They both turn to the human and ask, what is the point of this? And the human takes the bottle, opens it, and lets the starlight out to play, saying, the point was the light, not the container. There was a pause in the recording. Then, a reluctant chuckle from the Graph. A faint, amused shimmer from the Veln. Leora had rustled with laughter. Tarek himself had let out a short, surprised breath. Not quite a laugh, but close. The answer to the joke. What was it? The human in the story had been asked for the point. The point was the light, not the container. Tarek's fingers moved to the probe's interface. In the password field, he did not type a word. He typed a feeling. He typed the meaning. He typed, the light not the container. The console chimed. A soft, warm, human sound. A message flashed. Decryption key accepted. Welcome back. The index on the screen began to glow. Every file was now accessible. The complete salvation of their civilization laid bare. But no one moved to download them. They all stared at the final line of the message from Jin and Sumin. Call us when you are ready to talk. Properly. Tarek looked around the chamber. He saw Grathan, his crystalline face reflecting the soft light of the screen, no longer looking angry, but deeply thoughtful. He saw Leora, a new green shoot of hope rising from her core. He saw Kale, smiling faintly at the remembered joke. The gift was not the data. The data was the container. The real gift was the choice. The chance to remember the light. The chance to reconnect. Prepare a reply, Tarek said, his voice firm for the first time in a year. On this same frequency. Put me on. A communication channel opened, aimed at the dark, empty space where the human fleet had vanished. Tarek took a deep breath. He did not speak as a high counselor. He spoke as someone who had just learned a very hard lesson, Jin Sun, this is Tarek. We remember the joke. He paused, the weight of his next words holding the future. We were wrong. We missed the light. Please come home. Let us talk properly. He ended the transmission. The silence in the chamber was different now. It was not the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of waiting. The silence before a new beginning. Outside, the stars shone, no longer just points of navigation, but reminders of a light they had almost let go out, now waiting for an answer from the dark.